Hello everyone and welcome back to Nathrandyr's Guide to Everything. Today we have another character creation for you. Following on from Drizzt Erd in the last one, we have another companion of the hall today, and that is the famous Catti-brie, the arcane archer, reincarnated as a wizard, druid, all kinds of things. I'll get into it in a second. So, we have two versions of Catti-brie today. We have the one prior to her resurrection, her first life as a arcane fighter. She was adept in a little bit of wizardry, or an initiate I guess, but she was mainly a fighter using her bow and arrow. And in her second life she was actually known for shape changing, and she preferred spell casting as opposed to using the bow, which she had no practice with in her second life. So we're going to be covering both. They are both at master level at level 15. I thought that's the best way to represent them both in their prime. So first up, let's take a look at the fighter one. So I'll try and do a bit of lore along the way like I did with Drizzt. Catti-brie named as such because her name was Catelyn. Her mother died during her birth, unfortunately, and while her and her father were travelling, their trailer, their wagon, was attacked by goblins on the road and he was actually killed. Eventually turned away by the famous Bruenor Battlehammer of Clan Battlehammer, and she was taken in because she couldn't remember her surname. Essentially, her name was shortened from Catelyn to Catti, and she was called Brienne as well. Bruno gave her that name, basically her adopted father or daughter, whichever way around it is, and named her the second half of the name Brienne, and that was all kind of shortened eventually into Catti-brie. So that's the story behind how she became dwarven inclined, as it were, and she cares so much for Bruno, who will be upcoming in the... So without further ado, let's just have a quick look. There is some multi-classing again just to make this all work. We've gone for a normal human, that is a +1 across the board, and one extra language which I've chosen as Dwarvish, which makes sense with her heritage growing up. And for her level, we're at level 15. We're at the master section kind of a campaign. So this is kind of a height of her power as a fighter and a little bit of a wizard as well. So class feature wise, the same as Drizzt. It's not much different here. Went for champion with him, so it's got all the standard bits of second wind, action surge, but we've gone for proficiency in acrobatics and athletics, as well as for the fighting style we went with archery, +2 bonus to attack rolls made with ranged weapons, because that is her, I guess, her bread and butter. Second wind and action surge, like I said. The martial archetype we've gone for is arcane archer, which again, this is pulled a little bit from the game as well, but she was just a very adept archer. She did use a sword as well, which we'll go into in a little bit, quite a famous sword in fact. So arcane archer lore, you get a little bit of kind of druidic nature spells, which absolutely fits with what she turns into after she's resurrected. She gets nature and druidcraft proficiency and a small spell just to kind of keep her going, and we get an arcane shot. So these arcane shots essentially modify any attacks you make with a bow. So let's take a look at the ones I've chosen. I just thought these were the strongest. I have no experience whatsoever with an arcane archer actually. So first up we have Seeking Arrow, which is an absolutely crazy thing. It's almost like the whistle from Guardians of the Galaxy, Yondu's whistle. Essentially if someone escapes you and you've seen them in the past minute, you can just divinely fire an arrow just into nothing and it will just follow them basically, and they have to make a dexterity saving throw, otherwise it hits them and does some extra damage on a hit as well. We also learn its location. Absolutely incredible, and just that ability made me want to play this character. Like, that's absolutely bonkers. There's so many times when things run away from you and stuff in battle, you can just go, doesn't matter where you are in the world, shoot it and just follows them anywhere. So next up we have the Piercing Arrow. So this one's quite fun as well. This is essentially if you have a few things in a line, or if you need to hit something through a wall, this is the way to do it. The arrow essentially becomes ethereal. It shoots forward in a line, can pass through objects like they were nothing. It's basically a line 1 foot wide, 30 feet long. It's almost a spell at this point. And each creature in that line has to make a dex save or they take extra damage. Really cool as well. I just thought it would probably be the most useful. And finally, third up we have Grasping Arrow. So essentially this just kind of entangles the creature that you aim it at, and if they try to move they take kind of poison and slashing damage. They have to kind of break out with a strength check to be able to move properly. And finally, not preemptively this time, the Shadow Arrow. Essentially, this is a bit of a strange one. I couldn't decide on a fourth one. None of them really jumped out at me like those other three did. But this one's pretty cool and got quite a lot of flavour, so I thought I'd go for it. This essentially obstructs the vision of whoever you shoot at. So if you get hit by it, you take an extra 2d6 psychic damage and make a wisdom saving throw. If they fail, then they're unable to see further than 5 feet until the start of the next turn, which basically renders them, I guess, immobile, or they have to kind of run around the battlefield aimlessly. It makes them really subject to other effects and things like that. I just thought it sounded quite fun. And I can just imagine drawing the arrow and it just like exploding like a ball of gas around them or something, I'm not sure. So 4th level, we went for an ability score improvement of Dex and Con. At 5th level, we get an extra attack. At 6th level, we went for a double dip into Intelligence due to, I guess, being more inclined towards the arcane by this point and just kind of progressing into that wizard training that she does. I thought Intelligence would be a good place to put our spare points. At 7th level, we get a magic arrow. So this ability I'm not really too keen on, to be honest. I think it's kind of a bit pointless. By 7th level, if you don't have a magical bow or arrows or anything, I feel like you're going to be struggling a lot by 7th level. So this is kind of negligible, I think. But essentially, if you happen not to, you can make your things magical. So if you're in a low magic campaign, maybe, where it's like really gritty and realistic, or it's magic has been banished from the world or whatever, this could be really useful. But in most games, it's not going to be great, to be honest. This one's a little bit better, Curving Shot. You learn how to direct an errant arrow toward a new target. When you make a roll with a magic arrow, which should be all of them, you can use a bonus action to re-roll the attack to a different target. So again, it's just this crazy going around corners things. You're basically like in Wanted, curving bullets and things. It just sounds really, really fun. Just finally, for the ability score improvements at this level, we've gone for Intelligence and Constitution, taking that up as high as we can. And then 9th level fighter ability, Indomitable. If we fail a saving throw, we can roll again. Let's take a look at the 5 levels in Wizard that we've taken. Oh, that's 10 levels in Fighter, by the way, for Arcane Archer. So, from what I could tell, Catti-brie initially couldn't really get the hang of slinging spells, but when she did, she was very fond of, I guess, the more flashy ones. Evocation spells specifically, like Fireball, Magic Missile, and just anything that made a lot of noise and a lot of light and craziness, basically. So we've leaned into that a little bit more, and I would say this is probably going to be her at her most adept. Again, level 15 is quite high, so this is her at her most adept and her most lethal as this kind of cross class between the two things. First up, obviously, our spellcasting goes through our Intelligence. A 1st level ability as a wizard, we can recover some spells on a short rest. Our tradition is the School of Evocation, typically, which means we have a lot of spells that blow up things. It takes half the amount of time and gold to copy a evocation spell into our spellbook, which is great. Sculpt spells means essentially we can make pockets of safety. If we fire a fireball, which has a 20-foot radius, which is bigger than you think, and some of our friendlies are in there, you can actually shield them from the damage or just make them succeed on the saving throw, which is really, really fun. That means you don't have to care so much about who you're hurting with your spells. We have this new optional feature, cantrip formulas. So we can formulate a cantrip in our mind. Whenever we finish a long rest, you can replace one of your cantrips that you know. This is an optional feature that came from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. I like it, just gives you more options, so never a bad thing. And finally, the ability score improvement at level 4, a double dip into Constitution, just to make us a bit healthier, because I did notice that the character sheet was looking a little light on the old hit points due to being multi-classed. Let's take a look at the abilities now. So we've gone for another heroic set of scores, same as Drizzt, 18, 16, 14, 12, 12 and 10. I think it's actually laid out exactly the same as on Drizzt as well in this particular build of Catti-brie, her fighter build. And yeah, I'll just skip to the next one. So for a description, we went for another folk hero, which is proficiency in animal handling and survival, and we have smith's tools as well, because from what I could read, it sounded like Catti-brie actually did a bit of crafting herself. She helped with reforging Twinkle after it was broken with the other sword, Vidrinath, the magical sword. She helped fuse those together along with other dwarves. I think it's Buster Bracer, I think is the dwarf's name, in the famous forge at Gauntlgrim. So really, really cool. Let's jump into the character sheet. Wonderful. So welcome to our fighter version of Catti-brie, the character sheet. Now there's not too many magic items to report here. We've got some really fun ones, and this sword that you can see there, Catti-brie, I put a lot of effort into making it feel really unique, and it actually, just going off all the flavour and the lore text that I could find about this sentient weapon, I tried to just make it as unique as possible, and it's got a few minor magical items kind of built into it. From what I could read, it just seems to make sense with the lore around this weapon, and I'll go into that in a second. So you may remember, if you've watched the previous video, we do have Talmaril here, which is the famous longbow that she wields that can make her arrows ethereal and things, and it is a +3 longbow. It is legendary in the sense that there are none like it, but it is just a basic magical weapon, I guess, if that makes sense. It has a famous name and such, also called the Heartseeker, but it doesn't have any crazy over-the-top effects that come with it. Some of that actually comes from the quiver, which I also featured in the Drist video as well. On a hit, a target takes an extra 1d6 lightning damage, and potentially you have unlimited ammunition. The arrows she wields are 20 enchanted alchemical silver arrows, which I'll add in now. I'll just show you quickly how to do that. If we get to manage inventory, there we are. If we just search arrow, it would be +1 arrows, because that's what they are. We add those in. We would have 20 of those. Not that it particularly matters, to be honest, because I mean they're unlimited, but you only fire 20 before they... Essentially what happens is you shoot one, it hits something, and over a couple of minutes it kind of fizzles away and sizzles and then appears back in the quiver. But to change the name of something again, or to say if it's silvered or not, you can literally just go to here. So if I just say alchemical silvered arrows, bang. Look at that. Hit silver, and actually looks like we have to type the +1. There you go, just so we know it's +1. So that's an extra +1 to hit and to damage. So incredible. So we've added that in there as well. So a few things to take into account there. And the Quiver of Inariel was a gift from Lady Inariel to... gosh, who was it? Lore, let me find out. Okay, found it. So essentially it was found in Mithril Hall along with Talmaril, and first crafted by Lady Inariel and given to dwarves, basically, and that's why it was found there, and she went on to use it basically for the rest of her fighter career, because they're such powerful and fantastic items. There is also stories about her having what's called a cat's eye circlet, which as far as I can tell just function as goggles of night vision, just so she could see in the dark, which as a human you can't normally, and very helpful if you're in like loads of dwarven tunnels and things, which is where she grew up. She also had was given a ring by Drist, which gave her fire resistance, which I couldn't quite squeeze into this, because essentially this is a wand of fireballs that is changed to be a ring of fireballs, which is essentially what she had. She didn't know it gave her fire resistance or any of its other properties, which I'll go into in the next section, but essentially when she found out she was alright at spells, she just loved slinging fireballs, so this just gives her the ability to do that without having to use her wizard spell slots as well. And finally, the most exciting thing about this character sheet is this Catti-brie, a longsword. So essentially Catti-brie has passed through a few hands. Its original origin is really mysterious. No one really knows where it came from. The stories around it are that it was just spawned from the, the Fezres, as far as I can tell. That's what that says, the Fezres Forge there, which is the kind of the lingering magic in the Underdark that the Drow use to hide their location and things. They build around heavy areas of Fezres. Now, I hope I'm saying that right. So apparently it came from that, or it was a demonic intelligence forced into the form of a sword. Its impossibly sharp edge glows with a barely perceptible red light. And there is a typo there. I will fix that before I release this. Essentially, this was found in the Underdark by Drist. Drist, being a scimitar wielder, didn't really like the chunkiness of the longsword, and so he gifted it to Catti-brie. One of the notable things about it, in this adaptable feature I've added there, it does actually mold to the user. So if they're a strength or dexterity based build, it changes, the handle changes to kind of fit their style. Even then, Driz still didn't like it. Its design also changes. The pommel changed from a unicorn head when Drizzt was wielding it to actually kind of a depiction of Gwenhwyvar. I guess a nice kind of way to say this was my last owner. And when Catti-brie had it, it turned into like the head of a hunting cat almost on the pommel, which is really, really cool. But that's kind of where the nice things about it stop. It seems to be an evil weapon, or I've got it down as neutral, because it wants what it wants. It's just selfish. It's not necessarily evil from what I can tell. It just loves battle and blood. And I don't know if that makes something evil. It just knows what it wants, right? It's just hungry. But regardless, this is a +3 magical weapon, and it functions as a Vorpal sword out the gate, so it ignores resistances to slashing damage. And if you roll a natural 20, you cut off a creature's head. If they can't survive without it, they die. This doesn't work on all but the biggest of creatures, essentially. If they're immune to it, doesn't need a head, or has legendary actions, or the Dungeon Master, the Game Master, decides that the head is too big to be cut off, such as creature instead takes 68 slashing damage. So it does function as a Vorpal sword, and this Khazad-dûr was known, it's called the Cutter, that's its nickname, in the Drow communities. It is known for just being unbelievably sharp. It was said it could slice easily through flesh, obviously, bone and rock as well, which is why we've got a few features on here that I'll show you now. So, first up, Adapter, which I've already been through. Illumination. In a lot of the artwork, I noticed that the red aura was actually a lot bigger than what they mentioned, this barely perceptible light. So actually what I've done is give it an illumination ability, so you can make it glow if you wanted to with this red light. It also has the cutting edge feature, or siege. You deal double damage against objects and structures. I'm just trying to flavour it for this one. Battle trance. It was said that a lot of the wielders of this sword would just go into a trance when they were in battle, even if they were hugely outnumbered. They would not realise that they've been hurt, and then just look down afterwards at all the people they've defeated. So I've got kind of a rage ability almost. So I've got this down as immune to frightened and charmed. Other than those conditions applied by the sword, because the sword is sentient. You have to attack a hostile creature once you're in battle, or you must use your full move to get to them. If you drop to 0 hit points while wielding this sword and don't die, you can make a DC 10 Constitution saving throw once per day to go to 1 hit point instead, and that just reinforces the battle trance. And so the Fezres Forged, the idea from this comes from the Amulet of Proof and Detection Against Location, I believe it's called. And this is why the Drow built where they did in the Underdark, is to avoid detection. So I feel like this actually being forged in the Underdark, in the main part of the magic down there in the Abyss, it may be immune, or make the user immune to scrying sensors, which I thought was really, really cool. I've also gone for this ability Unsatiable, which basically gives it a weapon of warning quality. You get advantage on initiative and you can't be surprised. Super, super powerful, but it is said that it always is looking for a battle. It's always hungry, so I thought this makes sense. It's awake and alert always, and will keep you as such as well. You also get advantage on charisma intimidation checks due to the just dark aura that surrounds you when you're using it. And it has a sentience with an intelligence of 16, a wisdom of 12, and a charisma of 18. It has hearing and dark vision, can understand common, undercommon, as well as any languages the creature that has it knows. And those who hold it hear the voice of an unknown entity, beckoning the user to battle as much as possible. And the personality, just to round this out, is always hungry for blood and battle, is never sated. Khazad-dûr has one desire: to be held by the greatest warrior. It would even accept its wielder's death in pursuit of a better wielder. The sword is imperious and demanding of its user. Only those with the strongest wills can earn its respect. And it is actually said that Catti-brie did tame this sword and make it hers. And it was passed around a few hands after that, and she always had a connection with it, even after the fact. So that's it for the fighter version of Catti-brie. Let's quickly go over the magical version, her reincarnated self. So essentially, we're just leaning into her penchant for flashy spells. Basically, it was also said that she had some minor shapeshifting and that she was very druidic and quite holy in her second life, as opposed to being an archer in her first. So we've gone for Druid of the Moon, which makes your wild shapes better. We've got proficiencies in Arcana and Nature, as opposed to like acrobatics and athletics. Like I said, we've gone for the Circle of the Moon, which just makes our combat wild shape. We can do it as a bonus action and things like that. For our ability scoring points, we went with Wisdom and Constitution, because our stats are slightly different this time round as well. We've also got Primal Strike, which means we deal magic damage as a beast now as well, which is fantastic. We get some more forms at a higher level as a druid. And where are we? Here we are. An 8th level wild shape improvement. That means we can transform into flying things, which she was known for. She was known for being an eagle and a hawk and other things, so we had to be at least that level. And for our ability scoring improvement at level 8, we went for a double dip into intelligence. And then to round out the wizard school, because we went to 5th level before, we're now at 7th. The only new feature is potent cantrip. So when we cast a cantrip, if they save, the creature still takes half damage, which is really, really fun. Let's take a look at the character sheet. Oh, and abilities this time around, we have switched them slightly. Our wisdom has swapped with our dex, and I think everything else is the same. So that's again another heroic set, 18, 16, 14, 12, 12, 10. Because this is an actual reincarnation by a goddess of Catti-brie, just in a different body almost. And it was said that Catti-brie could actually cast spells from the age of 5. She could cast Call Lightning from the age of 5. She killed assassins that came for her parents at the time. Absolutely crazy. I can't even imagine. But yeah, we have a multi-class here again, a druid and a wizard all combined into one. So very spellcaster focused. You can see all our proficiencies there. We have 20 wisdom, 18 dex, 18 intelligence, so she keeps her dexterity and nimbleness as well. Spells, there's a lot. I won't go too deep into all of them, just the ones that I think stand out. I'll go into the ones that come from the items in a second. Firebolt, she loved evocation spells. Guidance, she was said to be almost holy with her devotion to Mieliki, the goddess of the hunt, the forest queen. So I thought guidance kind of leads into that side of the druid there. Gust is an evocation spell. I feel like she would want to do that. Prestidigitation, minor magical effects, just makes sense. Reduce flame ray of Fost, both again evocation, and she was adept. She became a properly powerful divine and arcane caster simultaneously. Cure wounds for healing. This kind of influence actually came from the game. She does have a healing aura thing in the new D&D Dark Alliance game. Long strider just for movement. Magic missile, she was famous for casting. Shield because a caster needs it. Speak with animals just due to her affinity with the natural world. Thunderwave because it's evocation. Scorcher, evocation. Flame blade, gust of wind, heat metal, all just evocation spells. I thought Icing Death's Frost is actually a Unearthed Arcana, so I guess non-approved spell yet. It's in playtesting, but Icing Death is one of the dragons that they defeated. I don't think she was actually there, but it's what Driz defeated. I thought this was really apt, so I've added that in as well. It's a cone of cold basically that freezes enemies. We've just got plenty more evocation spells. Moonbeam, Pass Without a Trace, Snox, Snowball, Swarm. So Pass Without a Trace just for stealthiness, to keep that archer in her, that ranger vibe. Call Lightning, she's famous for. Fireball, also famous for. And the rest are just evocation spells. Actually, you see that I've doubled up on Wall of Water by accident. You can also cast Divination with the additional wizard spells, just to be in contact with her god. And then we've got Polymorph to just infuse that shape-shifting ability that she had, just even more so. And we've actually put one of my own homebrew spells in here, which is Evocation. Cypher's Voltaic Hands, so she can use her hands to cast spells and chop things to pieces. And finally, the Wall of Fire. So you can see our very complicated spell attacks and save DCs here. There are two different ones for the Druid and the Wizard, so that's wouldn't be fun to keep track of, I can't imagine. But now, into the magic items, which is where she really pops off here. So the Ring of Fire Elemental Command was a ring that Drist gave her. He didn't know it was that. He thought it was just a Ring of Fire Resistance. But actually, it enabled her to speak to a primordial god known as Magira, I think, like a fire god. And command over fire elementals, and she could cast all these spells from it as well. Burning Hands, Dominate Monster, Fireball, and Wall of Fire. Just further reinforcing that craziness. It was also said that she had a ring that could pull down the stars from the heavens, And the only thing I could think of straight away was the Ring of Shooting Stars, which is a very rare ring, very hard to come by, and it does these kind of things. You can cast a few spells from it, but it also has an innate ability called Shooting Stars. So it fits perfectly, I think. And she said basically all she wielded towards the end were rings and wands. It literally said in the Wikipedia an assortment of wands. I tried to do research, I couldn't find anything that hinted at what exactly she used on a day-to-day basis, so I just went with a bread and butter wand of the War Mage for her general use, a wand of wonder just for some craziness with all these weird spells and weird effects I thought would be quite fun. It's an amazing item, by the way. I've actually had it in a campaign before. Give it to your players' DMs and players search for it. It's so much fun. And a wand of enemy detection just to keep her safe from the assassins that might be following her around the world. We still got the cat's eye circlet in there, or the goggles of night for all intensive purposes. She's also said to keep a dagger just down the side of her boot, and she actually wore a particular set of robes that were pulled from a character called Jack the Gnome, which I couldn't find too much about, but apparently Drizzt defeated this character who was known for spending a lot of time with mind flayers and other horrible creatures, but essentially the robes would never get dirty, so they are robes of gleaming essentially, and she used to wear those during her training and when she was basically in her second life as Rukia, or she was still known as Catti-brie. And we are attuned to the Ring of Shooting Stars, the Fire Elemental Command Ring, and the Wand of the War Mage, and you can switch between them, I guess, as you would choose. But that is it. Oh, I've just noticed our saving throws. Good God, +9, +10 intelligence and wisdom. That's crazy. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, everybody. This is the second in a series on the Companions of the Hall. This has been Catti-brie, 2 versions of her at master level, level 15. I hope this gave you some ideas for your characters as it's meant to, or if you wanted to play them, feel free, fire away. Yeah, this has been Natha and Dia's Guide to Everything. If you enjoyed it, leave a like and a comment, and please subscribe if you're not. I know you're just watching this video. I really want to get to 1,000 subs so I can get a community post going and we can start taking votes on videos and things like that. Yeah, it's really exciting. It's been going well the past couple of weeks, so yeah. I'll see you in the next one, ready for Bruno or Wolfgar, or it might just be a beginner's guide. Who knows? But I'll see you then. Bye-bye.